In my previous life, I won the lottery for 50 million, and after tax, I received 40 million. I thought that from then on, I would reach the pinnacle of my life. The end of the world came. My boyfriend sold me for the price of a cake. Just like that, I tragically became a meal for the living. When I opened my eyes, I was squatting by the flower pot in front of the bank. I was still holding that 50 million lottery ticket in my hand. In my head, I still felt the pain of being torn apart by the living dead. Every nerve remembered it. I was stunned on the spot with fear. I was reborn. After reacting, I did not rush to the bank to receive the prize, but ran to the fast food restaurant next door. I ordered a simple egg fried rice. In that grave, I had not eaten rice for 3 months. I had only lived for 3 months. The taste of rice and eggs in my mouth made me feel like a dream. The egg fried rice that I used to hate now made me cry with emotion. After the meal, I went to the convenience store to buy a hat and a mask, fully equipped, and invited myself to the bank to receive the prize. After verification, 40 million had been deposited into my account, just like my previous life. But this time, I didn't rush to call my boyfriend, just sent a text message, "Let's break up." I wish him and her 8 sons, each of whom would be incompatible with their parents. The reason I was so calm was because in my previous life, after the apocalypse, I found out. It turned out that he had been having an affair with his secretary. If he hadn't suddenly learned that I 50 million won, he would have dumped me long ago. After sending the text message, I looked at the date, 20 days until the apocalypse. This time, I had to plan carefully, absolutely could not make the same mistake. I withdrew 20 million, bought a house in the suburbs, 3 stories. The scenery was quiet, this place was all sparsely populated, there were few zombies, the survival rate was much higher. Moreover, the villa was built very solidly, the foundation was deep, and the geology was also good. But I was still not confident, so I found another high-end interior design company, replaced all the glass with bank standard bulletproof glass, and added heat insulating and one-way anti-spy film, making it completely impossible to see inside from the outside. After all, in the apocalypse, people's hearts are even more terrifying than zombies. Not only that, the wall surrounding the villa, I told the workers to soundproof the entire wall, the materials were all top quality. After the apocalypse, people would rush into the bedroom, soundproof walls could significantly reduce the risk. The construction progress was supposed to take about 20 days, but I couldn't wait, so I went to find the owner of the company and told him that it had to be completed in 10 days. Money was no problem, as long as the progress was fast enough. The manager seemed suspicious, so I lied that I was preparing a surprise for my family, saying that my family would come in a day or so. Actually, it wasn't exactly a lie. In my previous life, my family was planning to visit me. I had also prepared a surprise for them. I didn't expect the virus to break out on the way. I don't know what happened to them after that. Thinking about it, my heart was empty. So in this life, I called my family earlier, saying that I missed them very much and wanted to invite them to stay with me for a few days. I booked the nearest flight and told them to leave immediately. I just wanted to see them again immediately. Right now, my family hasn't arrived yet, and the house hasn't been repaired yet, but I can't sit idly by. During the day, I supervise the construction and check for additional work. I hired a few more workers to install solar panels for the villa. Not long after the apocalypse, the power system will collapse, and the whole country will have a massive power outage. I also completely sealed off the rooftop of the villa. The balcony was also sealed off, and anti-theft doors and bulletproof glass were installed. The door lock was also replaced with a bank standard security lock. The main door of the villa was also replaced with a safe-style door. 2 more layers of doors were added outside. To enter the villa, one had to pass through 3 layers of doors. After completing these tasks, I also bought some door blocking devices to feel secure. Seeing that the quality and progress of the construction were fine, I went to the car dealership and bought a large excavator and a trailer. In case the villa could not be held up, I could still drive away. Next, I drove to the nearby farmer's market. I began a crazy hoarding regime. 200 bags of rice, 50 bags of flour, 50 barrels of cooking oil. A barrel of salt, sugar, soy sauce, sesame oil, 200 cartons of purified water. 10 boxes of instant noodles of all flavors. 10 boxes of frozen bread, 50 packs of melon seeds, all kinds of snacks. I took 50 packs of whatever I saw. Chocolate, candy, all kinds of self-boiling soup. I took 300 boxes of whatever I saw. Until the trucks I rented were full, the trunk could barely close before I stopped. On the way home, I stopped at the pharmacy to buy some medicine, mainly because of the epidemic control. I couldn't buy much, so I planned to go to a few more places. I waited for the repairman to finish and leave. I secretly invited him to move the supplies into the bedroom of the house. Supplies were life. If the news leaked, I would become a living target for everyone. Finally, on the 10th day, the renovation of the villa was completed. My parents and younger sister also arrived. I immediately told them directly that the end of the world was coming. We needed to prepare in advance. But no one believed me. My mother even worriedly touched my forehead. I told me not to joke like that. Were you too tired? Was your mind confused from overwork? My mother looked at me worriedly. She touched my forehead over and over again. Mom, I'm not joking. If you don't believe me, something will definitely happen to the old man at the head of the village tonight. My mother was shocked when she heard that. What nonsense are you talking about? Saying bad things? That old man was still very healthy. The other day, I saw him working in the fields. He looked very energetic. Don't say bad things about other people. I won't argue with them anymore. Anyway, tonight they will know what I said is true. Before, my parents said they would come to visit me after finishing their work in the fields. Finally, when they were about to arrive, my mother called and said that the old man at the village entrance had passed away, and that they had to postpone their visit for a few days. At that time, my mother told me on the phone that the old man was working in the fields, and on his way home, he fell from a slope. That night, he died in the hospital. Life is so unpredictable, it only takes a second to be unpredictable. For dinner, my mother cooked a table full of delicious, fragrant dishes that made me feel nostalgic. You've lost weight after eating so much. Working in the city must be tiring, right? My mother gently put food in my bowl. My father also looked at me with pity. It's okay, Dad. Before I could finish my sentence, the phone rang incessantly. Dad stood up and took the phone from me. He'll take the call first. You guys eat first. After saying that, he went out to the balcony. When he came back, his face was solemn. How is Dad? Who called? It was the aunt at the beginning of the village calling. She said the old man had passed away. Tonight, my mother was stunned when she heard it. The piece of meat fell from the chopsticks without her knowing. My father quietly took a cigarette from his pocket, lighted it and smoked quietly. The old man had passed away. My parents finally believed what I said. But time was pressing, and our supplies were still too low. As soon as it was light, I immediately went to the car company to buy a heavy-duty truck, preparing to go to the neighboring city to get the goods. Buying too many things at the supermarket near home would easily arouse suspicion. A few days ago, there was a repairman at home, so I didn't dare buy too many. Now I can finally relax. Moreover, my father has an A2 license and used to drive long-distance trucks. This kind of heavy truck is nothing to him. We drove to a large supermarket in a neighboring city. This time I didn't go into the sales area but directly contacted the supermarket manager. The excuse was that we wanted to donate supplies to a nursing home. Due to the time crunch, the factory couldn't ship the goods in time, so we had to go to the supermarket to buy them first. After hearing that, the manager was so happy that his eyes narrowed, not suspecting anything. After looking at the list, he immediately ordered someone to load the goods onto the truck. This time I didn't hold back at all. I took everything I saw. I took all the snacks that were left in the warehouse. I took all the home-cooked food I saw. Pure water, soft drinks. As long as there was anything left in the warehouse, I loaded it onto the truck because the food I ate was hard to preserve. I also called my mother, who was in the villa arranging supplies. I told her to buy 5 more large freezers to store meat, and to buy pots, pans, dishes, and other things. When the staff was loading the goods onto the truck, my father saw that there was some fertilizer in the corner of the warehouse, so he decided to take it too, and also bought vegetable seeds and some water filters. By the time the supermarket warehouse was almost empty, the truck just now was empty, and we had to buy more clothes, quilts, and other things that could fill the empty space. I suggested that, after all, the post-apocalyptic weather was not only erratic but also extremely extreme. Sometimes hot, sometimes cold, many people could not bear the harsh weather and died. In the end, we bought 5 to 6 quilts, 80 sets of down jackets for each person, 80 sets of cotton jackets, 15 electric fans, 15 heaters, 15 mattresses, and 66 boxes of heating pads. 88 boxes of fever-reducing patches before stopping. When we drove back to the city center, it was already 1 a.m. The surroundings were deserted, not a soul in sight. Because the truck was too big to enter the villa, we carefully transported each trip, bringing the goods inside. Finally, before dawn, we had almost finished transporting everything. The rest would wait until we left for another city, and my mother and sister would continue transporting at night. After a night's rest, the next afternoon, my father drove the smaller truck I had bought earlier, waiting for me to leave with him to a closer city. With the experience from the last time, this time the shopping went very smoothly. But this time, my father and I agreed to buy more household items, entertainment items, and self-defense weapons. When we returned to the villa, it was already a day and a night later. My mother and sister had finished transporting the remaining goods into the house. At this time, the second and third floors of the villa were already full of goods, with no empty space. It was still night, with no one around, another busy night for the whole family. This time the truck was smaller than the last time, and finally the goods were arranged before dawn. It was morning. My father and I went to the first market, which seemed to be the biggest in the city, but this time we didn't buy much. Besides being afraid of being suspected, we were also out of space at home, so we only bought what other importers had. On the way back, my phone rang and it was my ex-boyfriend Kelvin calling. My fault, I forgot to block the number, so I didn't even answer. He borrowed money from an old debt that he hadn't paid yet. He must be trying to cheat me again. Thinking that, I hung up the phone and conveniently put him on the blacklist. It's better to have less contact with this kind of person. It's easy to get hurt. I laughed bitterly to myself. That's right, he was too clever, and I was too naive. He had already cheated on me, and I was still naive enough to think I was the only one. It was ridiculous. The clock counted down, 3 more days until the end of the world. Right now, the supplies were almost ready, enough for the family of 4 to eat and drink for 3 to 4 years without any problems. Furthermore, my father also grows a lot of vegetables on the balcony. If he can grow them, he will probably survive to old age even if the world ends. But the thing that worries me the most is safety. I am not afraid of 10,000 things, but I am afraid that maybe. Dad, these past few days I noticed that the surrounding villas are temporarily empty. There are a few that are still for rent. Why don't we rent them all? Renting is fine, but I probably don't have much money left. I told him to rest assured, I still have money. Actually, right after buying the villa, I regretted it. Why pay all the money to buy a villa? The end of the world is coming, and I'm still afraid that someone will force me to pay the bank loan. So I put the villa I just bought up and borrowed 100 million from the bank. With the money, I rented 3 neighboring villas. The average rental price for a villa is 10 million per month. 3 villas are 30 million per month. Why only rent 3? Because 1 villa is not for rent. It's on sale and hasn't been sold yet. For safety, I gritted my teeth and paid the deposit and bought that one. After dealing with those things, I still wasn't at ease. I also bought 50 more super small cameras to install in the corners of all 4 villas. After all, the internet doesn't have to be cut off immediately when the apocalypse comes. Before the apocalypse, to be more careful, my whole family unanimously decided not to go out anymore. But even though we were in the villa, we weren't idle, taking advantage of the time when the electricity and water systems hadn't collapsed. We brought all the devices that could be charged, all the water tanks were filled. My father had just finished eating all of my husband's vegetables. In the remaining time, everyone downloaded their favorite videos, comics, novels, or games to kill time in the boring and dangerous apocalypse life that followed. Around 8 a.m., I was woken up by my sister shaking me hard. Get up quickly. Look outside the window. The sky outside looks strange. I was on duty all night last night. I was so sleepy that I couldn't open my eyes. I raised my head and looked out the window. The sky was gray and foggy. The clouds were very low. It didn't feel right that it was about to rain. I jumped up and checked all the doors in the villa. Everything was locked tightly to feel secure. I turned on my phone to check the weather. It showed that it was sunny today, 34 degrees. I looked at my phone and then looked outside. Tell me, what did you just see? I don't believe it. The sky was still sunny, but just a second later it turned red like blood, and I couldn't see anything anymore. Then it was like you saw. My voice was trembling, obviously very scared. After comforting my sister, I pulled her to find my parents. After telling her the whole strange thing that had just happened outside, Everyone was silent. I took out the binoculars and decided to observe the situation outside. Because it was in the villa area, there was almost no one outside. But it had already started to rain. Suddenly, a scream broke the silence. Run quickly, someone has turned into a monster. Please open the door. Save me, don't leave me. Help me. The people outside the villa began to panic and make a ruckus. Through the binoculars, I saw someone running towards my villa. From the looks of it, it was a muscular man, with a child in his heart, and behind them were two zombies chasing after him. The corners of their mouths were still stained with blood, looking like they had just eaten meat. The apocalypse had officially begun. Although the zombies' speed was not fast, their endurance was extremely strong. The man clearly couldn't take it anymore. His steps became heavier and heavier, and his speed gradually slowed down. Seeing the zombies getting closer and closer, the man suddenly stopped, tremblingly put the child in his arms down, and without turning back, ran away. The child saw the zombies getting closer and closer, and was so scared that he cried even louder, calling out, "Daddy," over and over again. But not long after, the crying gradually faded away and then completely disappeared. I looked at this scene, and although my heart ached, I couldn't do anything because the truth was actually much more terrifying. I put down the binoculars and told my family that no matter who knocked on the door or said anything, they were not to open the door or go out. In the apocalypse, the most taboo thing is that kindness only harms oneself and others. Fortunately, my family understood this principle. They nodded in agreement. At 12:20, the rain outside seemed to have stopped, but the number of zombies outside was clearly increasing. Turning on the phone, the screen was filled with news about the apocalypse, terrifying scenes, and desperate pleas for help that kept refreshing. The comments section was full of painful groans. It was really unbearable to watch. The entire city had completely collapsed at night. The streets were full of zombies. Fortunately, the water and electricity systems had not collapsed yet. We could still live normally. The news on the phone was all official responses from the government. They urged people not to go out, to stay at home and wait for relief. Although I believed in the government, I also knew that most people probably wouldn't be able to wait for the day of rescue. It was summer now, the temperature was high, and things were difficult to preserve. Moreover, most people didn't have the habit of hoarding things now. I guessed that most people with current supplies wouldn't last 5 days. After 5 days, there were definitely quite a few people who went out to look for things. Thinking of this, I let out a sigh. Fortunately, before the apocalypse, we had already stockpiled so many supplies, so we didn't have to worry, and we didn't have to risk our lives against zombies just to get something to eat. For our first meal in the apocalypse, we ate Mom's hand-shredded chicken noodles. So we started our apocalyptic lives passively. During the first 4 days of the apocalypse, whenever I finished my shift and had free time, I used binoculars to observe the zombies' living habits, hoping to find their weaknesses. But the results disappointed me. I discovered that zombies didn't need to rest at all. Regardless of day or night, they tirelessly roamed the streets, on music machines, balconies, and even on other people's cars. On the 5th day since the apocalypse broke out, I was planning to change shifts and go observe, so I went into the monitoring room. As soon as I entered, a few figures suddenly appeared on the monitor screen, causing goosebumps to rise all over my body, my hair standing on end from the tension. I held my breath, my heart pounding like thunder. There were about 3 people on the screen, 2 men and 1 woman. Their bodies were quite thin, they didn't have any dangerous weapons on them, so they didn't pose a threat for the time being. But I still didn't dare to let my guard down. After all, the hearts of people in the apocalypse were hard to predict. It was just that 2 of them looked very familiar, which gave me a strange feeling. While I was thinking, the other 2 seemed to sense something and suddenly turned their heads to look straight at the micro camera. Just that one look almost made me vomit blood, almost explode from anger. Weren't those my ex-boyfriend and the girlfriend he had deceived me into loving? Those 2 evil men and women. Thinking about my previous life, being deceived like a fool by those 2, I gritted my teeth in anger, my whole body shaking uncontrollably. But after 2 days of monitoring, I discovered that the 2 dog men and women brought pitifully few supplies, as if they were going out to make a fool of themselves. Now, in addition to being on duty every day, I also liked to run into the monitoring room. On the 7th day since the apocalypse, when I washed my face early in the morning, I discovered that I was dehydrated, and the temperature outside was also terrifyingly hot. Based on the asphalt outside, eggs could be cooked instantly. Humanity was one step closer to extinction. In the monitoring room, the electric fan was still running at full capacity, but the temperature was still unbearable. The scorching heat almost made me lose consciousness. I quickly drank a large gulp of water to stay awake. If this continued, I felt like I was about to hallucinate. Another 5 days passed, and the temperature outside still showed no signs of cooling down. The stock of cooling pads had run out on the 1st of the month, and my whole body was tormented by the heat. I was uncomfortable and restless, so in the monitoring room, I stuck a cooling pad on my forehead and cheeks. But after a while, it felt like I didn't put it on, not cool at all. I angrily took off the patch, used a tissue to wipe the sweat off my face, and looked at the monitor screen. I saw those two hateful people and the other person like 3 salted fish thrown ashore, motionless. Their mouths were now opening and closing to gasp for air. Because the weather was too hot, while we were eating, we turned on 7 fans at the same time. The strange thing was that when I turned it on, I felt much less hot. Last night when I was on duty, I discovered that the number of zombies outside had increased quite a bit, and it seemed that the high temperature had no effect on them. That's right, I wonder how the 3 people in the villa are doing. My father suddenly turned to ask me, his tanned face showing obvious worry. I raised my head to look at him and found that his eye sockets were sunken and slightly dark, obviously due to being busy these past few days. Not being able to rest and being too tired made me feel guilty, regretting telling my father about the 3 people breaking in, making him worry. They were still in that villa for the time being, and there had been no major movements. Don't worry, Dad, our windows have all been reinforced, they can't threaten us. My father nodded and replied, you're right. Old man, after you eat, go get some sleep, don't worry about other things all day. In the apocalypse, health is the most important thing. As Mom spoke, she picked up food for you several times. But I noticed that her eyes were a little red. I knew it was because she was feeling sorry for Dad. I agree with you too. Dad, go get some rest. Dad doesn't need to worry about those melons and vegetables. I'll take care of them after we eat. After the 3 of us persuaded, Dad finally couldn't bear to refuse, so he went to rest after eating. After returning to my room after the meal, I held my pounding chest, my whole body trembling. Just now, I suddenly thought of a place that everyone had overlooked, which was Kelvin. How did they get into the villa? As far as I knew, the security of this villa area in front of me was the best in the city. Even if I didn't change the locks on the villas I rented later, they still couldn't have gotten in so easily. I closed my eyes and tried to think, racking my brain for an answer. While the main door was locked, there were zombies wandering outside. How did they do it? Did they have some secret weapon? Thinking of this, I suddenly shivered. All kinds of terrifying images flashed through my mind, making me break out in a cold sweat. The back of my shirt was also soaked with sweat, making it sticky and uncomfortable. When I opened my eyes, I discovered that this was not the most suffocating thing. What was even more terrifying was that when I raised my head to look at the surveillance screen, I discovered that the 3 salted fish on the camera had disappeared. I immediately switched all the cameras in that villa. The video was still recording, but in the video, there was no trace of them. They just disappeared like they had evaporated from the human world. Could it be that they had returned to their rooms? I silently guessed in my heart, my palms were sweating non-stop. They must have really returned to their rooms. I comforted myself like that. When I first installed the camera, for convenience, I only installed it in the living room and hallway. So the other rooms were blind spots. In the surveillance system, they had opened the doors of other rooms to avoid them. I reassured myself like that. To confirm this thought, I continued to observe for another 30 minutes beside the camera, but still found nothing. There was still no sign of them on the monitor screen. I was impatient, but suddenly I remembered that the camera could review the video. Time to start reviewing. I chose 12:10, which was also the time I left. The 3 people in the villa were still lying on the floor as if stranded. At 12:15, the expressions of the 3 people in the video began to change. The reason was that the strange man lying next to Kelvin received a call. At 12:17, the man ended the call. His expression was extremely agitated, not because he said anything to Kelvin and the other woman. What was the content? After that, all 3 people seemed extremely excited. At 12:20, they left the villa one by one. After watching the video, I began to wonder who called the man and what the content of the conversation was. I once again regretted not installing a recorder in the villa. On the 20th day of the apocalypse, the power system was completely paralyzed. The screen in the surveillance room turned black, and the phone also lost signal. Outside the window, there were more and more colors. Their speed was faster than before, their bodies were much more flexible. In recent days, in addition to the increasing number of zombies, I also saw a few groups of survivors passing by. It seemed that they were all out looking for supplies, most of them driving their own cars or trucks. A few were running, but the outcome was mostly the same, either turning into zombies or becoming their food. On the 45th day of the world, hail suddenly fell, the temperature dropped sharply. The hailstones were as big as eggs and hit the glass doors hard, making boom boom sounds. The balcony windows were hit repeatedly. Fortunately, the most serious place only left a few light impact marks, no major damage. 3 hours later, the hail stopped. My family and I checked the windows and doors one by one. In the previous life, in this hailstorm, many people lost their lives due to broken glass. In addition to being bitten to death by zombies, there were also people who were beaten to death by their own kind fighting over supplies. That's why I told everyone to check very carefully, just a little carelessness can cost you your life. After the check was done, the whole family breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out that the most terrifying thing in the world was not the zombies but the human heart. The rain continued to come, and the scoundrel disappeared again. I looked out the window, most of the car windows were broken by the hail, and even the zombies were killed by the hail. Not long after the hail ended, although the temperature had dropped, we were still shivering in summer clothes. This life was even more difficult than going to the temple. But fortunately, we had stocked up on a lot of warm clothes. The quilts were finally starting to come into play. When we slept at night, we turned on the heater or spread out the heat-retaining patches, so the night wouldn't be so unbearably cold. After the hailstorm, I used binoculars to look outside, and was surprised to find that the number of zombies outside seemed to be much less than before. Maybe it was partly killed by the hail, I thought. On the 50th day of the apocalypse, the zombies seemed to have really reduced significantly. However, we encountered a problem that was even more troublesome than the living. It seemed that we were being targeted by someone. At first, I didn't pay attention. Until my sister told me in a panic. That afternoon, she wanted to draw a realistic picture. As a result, when she looked at the photo she took that day, she discovered a strange figure behind the curtain of the villa on the other side looking at us. As she spoke, she hurriedly found the photo she had just mentioned to show me. Because the shooting distance was quite far, the villa behind was a bit blurry, but when the photo was enlarged, based on the blurry figure, one could still vaguely see that it was a man. Unlike the two people on the camera before, this man was tall, muscular, and could knock down all four of us. Because of that, our whole family held an emergency meeting. Finally, after discussing, we decided to take turns watching the night. We monitored 24 hours a day without stopping. A few days later, everyone in the family had a serious expression. The results of the observation made the whole family suffocate. The situation didn't seem to be good. We seemed to be surrounded. The 4 surrounding villas seemed to have been occupied by others. Those people had been secretly observing us. How could that be? In my panic, I suddenly remembered my suspicions about Kelvin. How could they get into the villa? Could this siege be related to that incident? I told my family my suspicions because until now I still couldn't understand how Kelvin and the others got into the villa. Just like this time, how did they take over the villas around me? Villas? Did they use keys to open the doors? Keys? How did they get keys? Could it be from the management? The keys are kept by the management? Did they get them from the management? I think back and feel that this possibility is very high because the house I rented was also handled by the management. So my whole family, in a state of extreme tension, safely passed 2 days. During these 2 days, those people seemed to have no intention of attacking us. Just when we thought that they probably wouldn't do anything today. That night, the outer gate of the villa made a noise. The door was shaken. Then there were a few hoarse curses. In the quiet of the night, it sounded especially creepy. Because I was quite far away, I couldn't hear what they were saying, so I risked putting my ear to it. Going to the wall closest to the villa, I could faintly hear their conversation. Damn it, I couldn't open it, they must have changed the lock core. The master keys I prepared were useless. Don't dawdle around and see if you can pry it open. Be gentle, don't make too much noise. Bring the prostitutes over. Kelvin must still be in trouble. Or should we go see what's in another house? You know what? The boss said this house has a big house. If we can pry it open, we won't have to starve anymore. But we can't pry it open. Forget it, come back next time to check the villas in front. Are there any supplies? I still pressed my ear to the wall, my heart pounding like a drum. When I was sure they were gone, I breathed a sigh of relief and wiped the cold sweat from my forehead with my hand. I turned around and saw my father and sister holding iron rods, ready to fight to the death, while my mother was standing with a knife in her hand. I signaled for everyone to put down their weapons and pointed up the stairs, indicating to go upstairs and continue. What to do next? From the first floor to the third floor, my younger sister ran to me, holding onto my shirt, tears streaming down her delicate face. I looked at her with pain, but didn't know how to respond, so I just quietly reached out to wipe away the tears from the corner of her eyes. I gently comforted her, don't be afraid, it's probably not easy for them to open the villa door. Didn't they fail to open it today? It'll be fine. Dad patted my younger sister and I on the shoulder. After gently comforting me, he helped my trembling mother back into the room. Looking at the backs of my parents and my sobbing younger sister, I felt extremely helpless. If they really broke the door and rushed in, our whole family would be like fish on a chopping board, waiting for people to cut it up. Moreover, I don't know how many strong guys there were on the other side, just one of them would be enough to make it difficult for us to resist. From that night on, every night, we heard the sound of the door being pried open at the same time every night. But they didn't dare to make anything too loud, nor did they dare to stay too long. More than 10 days passed like that. The outer door of the villa was probably completely damaged by them. Although we can still endure it now, we probably won't be able to hold on much longer. During those 10 or so days, the weather changed again, the temperature rose one by one, the weather warmed up again, finally dispelling the cold, but it couldn't dispel the despair in our hearts. 3 days later, this time the voice outside the villa was no longer curses, but an excited voice like never before. Finally, after so many days, the lock was prying open. Keep your voice down, if you can pry it open, then quickly open the door. Don't be dawdling but still can't open it. Didn't you say you can pry the door open? Why can't you open it anymore? Kelvin, I didn't expect there to be a lock inside. I'm so angry. If there aren't any big goods inside, when we get there, I'll tell Big Brother to deal with that bitch. By the time they cursed and left, I felt exhausted, wiping the sweat off my face. This time, I finally got 2 important pieces of information. One was a woman smoking a cigarette who told them that this villa contained a lot of supplies. The other was their boss. The boss's name sounded familiar. I suddenly remembered that in my previous life, among the people who betrayed me, there was also a guy named like that. That guy was just a street thug before the apocalypse, but his family had some money, he did all kinds of evil, and in the end, he had to spend several years in prison riding a sewing machine. On the 90th day of the apocalypse, the temperature had begun to slowly rise, and the number of zombies was increasing. I couldn't help but feel strange. Could it be that after turning into zombies, they unlocked a special cold-resistant skill? Otherwise, why is it that when it's cold, there are almost no zombies? In recent days, when the temperature has risen, zombies have been popping up like mushrooms after the rain, one after another, but the fact that more zombies are appearing is not necessarily a bad thing for us. At least since the weather warmed up, those people came less, and were luckier to stay, only cursing more. Crack. I heard the door frame shaking violently. I knew they were coming again, and they were well prepared. This time the outer door probably wouldn't hold. Sure enough, as soon as I got downstairs, I pressed my ear to the wall and heard their cheers. Kelvin opened it. The door is open, good job. Don't dawdle. Hurry up and go in. Big bro. There's another door inside. Damn it, I'm so mad. Go back, kill that smoking woman and her man. Those guys seemed to be looking for supplies. Although they had retreated, the outer door of the villa was completely broken. Maybe in a few days they would break down the remaining 2 doors. Could it be that my fateful apocalypse would only last 3 months? The 95th day of the apocalypse. These days they didn't come anymore, but occasionally at night I could still hear noises in the management area. When I woke up and was about to listen more carefully, the sound had disappeared. On the 97th day of the apocalypse, early that morning, there seemed to be voices talking under my villa. I was startled and happy, and immediately got up to take a look. There were 4 cars parked under the villa, and the shadows in the cars sent a chill down my spine. They seemed to be plotting something, and suddenly a shadow in the car looked towards me. I panicked and put down the telescope, and quickly retreated to hide. Kelvin said, "Let's go, stop looking, there might be nothing in this villa. That smoking woman tricked us to save our lives, but I can't swallow this anger." Kelvin had just received news from that big brother, and discovered a large pile of goods in the dragon area ahead. One of them said, "After that, I heard them seem to throw something down from the car, followed by the sound of a car engine starting, and the sound gradually faded. When I was sure there was no more noise outside and that the demons had left, I breathed a sigh of relief and picked up the binoculars again to observe outside. In the northwest, I saw their 4 off-road vehicles and the remaining black light and smoke. I couldn't help but feel a cold and lonely feeling. Now in this villa, you are the older sister and our family is the living. On the morning of the 97th day of the apocalypse, 5 hours after those people left, I discovered that many zombies suddenly appeared around my house. I was very confused, until I used binoculars to discover 2 human-like skulls and a few pieces of torn clothes left behind. I immediately understood. The sound I heard last night was definitely the sound of them throwing corpses. They wanted to use the corpses to lure the zombies, creating an opportunity for the car to retreat. Wait, I stared at the white striped and floral cloth through the binoculars, stunned for a long time. If I guessed correctly, these pieces of cloth were exactly the same as the ones Kelvin and his girlfriend had worn a few days ago, then those 2 skulls belonged to them. But I don't know what I feel. Is it joy because I got my revenge or fear? I really don't know. The 130th day of the apocalypse, the zombies came out. I have never seen any other living people. Passing by our villa, the 160th day of the apocalypse, we have completely adapted to the current life in the apocalypse. The 180th day, today is very strange. It is clearly very hot outside but the zombies are getting fewer and fewer. While I was still wondering, I heard the sound of a heavy vehicle rolling across the road and a few gunshots. There are people outside, and they have guns, my family, and I immediately became alert. We tried to hide as well as possible, we carefully looked out. Outside was a group of people wearing green uniforms, wearing protective helmets, their whole bodies tightly wrapped, capturing a large number of zombies. Everyone had extraordinary skills. Very quickly, all the zombies outside the villa were captured and locked together in a large iron cage. The team leader, Comrade Alex, who had just been injured, arranged for the doctor to inject him with antitoxin, then quarantine him for 14 days. If there were no abnormalities, he could return to the team. Report to the team leader, there were currently no empty quarantine rooms in the temporary barracks. We listened to the noise outside and did not dare to speak up. Only when we confirmed that they were a rescue team sent by the state did we dare to come forward to help. The comrade who opened his mouth to report that the initial arrangement was in the villa next to our house. After thanking us, the team leader told the doctor to inject antitoxin into our whole family. This is the latest anti-zombie virus vaccine researched by the state. In my previous life, I only lived for 3 months. I hadn't waited for the vaccine to be available, nor had I seen the National Rescue Team, so I had never heard of antivenom. After 30 minutes, the doctor confirmed that we had no side effects and decided to leave. He said that there were still millions of compatriots waiting to be rescued. Hearing this, the corners of my eyes suddenly became teary. The government certainly did not abandon us. 3 months later, for 3 consecutive months, there were no new cases of zombie infection, and the number of zombies in these 3 months also quickly dropped from 100 units to 0. I had to admire the country's financial speed, it was really too fast. The city that had been heavily devastated soon returned to its former glory. I just didn't know if I still had to pay that debt of mine.